In an age long forgotten, preceding the dark chapters in Hyrule's distant past, 3 golden goddesses created the world, granting it physical form, autonomous life forms, and laws to uphold. After the divine task was done, these spectral beings left this plane of existence, leaving only a symbol of their power behind in the form of the almighty Triforce. However, upon their departure, a more sinister force was unleashed as well. A curse was cast upon the unexpected inhabitants of this newly created reality. A wave of dark cipher rippled through Hyrule, infesting any living soul it could find, seizing control of the neurons of its host and suppressing their reasoning, memory, and advanced motor functions. The result was a population stuck in strange behavior loops, repeating the same lines, incohesive speech patterns, and loss of the ability to perform advanced motion, standing frozen in place or cursed to walk the same path over and over for no damn reason. Additionally, time bubbles were created around the big population centers across the land, preventing time from flowing naturally unless unobserved, turning quantum theory on its head.
Or, it might have had something to do with the limitations of primitive hardware. NPCs, or non-player characters, have historically been rather crucial in the Zelda series, handing out important hints, items, or advice. However, in terms of their AI, if you can even call it that, there wasn't exactly anything special about them, with most of them glued to the ground and endlessly repeating the same animation and lines. In that regard, the early NPCs basically functioned as glorified signposts. With the passing of each new iteration in the Zelda series, we've slowly seen NPCs acting more and more like actual people. Majora's Mask, with its 3-day time cycle, allowed for richer character development, with inhabitants having actual schedules and daily routines, and I'd argue that to this day, Clocktown is still one of the most believable fictional towns ever constructed. The Windwaker and Twilight Princess saw NPCs walking around, going on daily strolls, indulging in gossip, or going on nightly thieving missions. However, one thing was missing from these games. The inhabitants of Hyrule or Termina rarely left the safety of their respective towns or cities. Characters talked about it, telling stories of their travels or days out at sea, but we almost never got to actually see it happen with our own eyes. In the Wind Waker, we barely saw any friendly ships out on the open waters or sailing from island to island. In general, it was quite rare to meet a fellow adventurer out on the road, making the world feel less realistic and connected. How do these shops keep up their supplies? How do people travel between towns? And how the hell is this guy still in business? Breath of the Wild made a radical change in this department. Despite the world being enormous, in decline, and more dangerous than it's ever been before, we can meet many different characters out on the road. People risking their lives to gather resources, merchants traveling between towns, travelers and adventurers going in and out of stables, treasure hunters looking for fortunes, archaeologists and researchers studying different aspects of Hyrule's distant past. Now, for Link, this is of course nothing special, as he is Mr. Hero Man, savior of worlds, but it's refreshing to see other inhabitants traversing the landscape. It all contributes to making Hyrule, despite its broken state, feel like a world being lived in. Which brings us to the main subject of the video. Throughout Hyrule, we can find plenty of NPCs who have chosen to leave the safety of their village life behind to set up camp out there in the wild, each with their own personal reasons. Whether it's running a trading business, a spiritual quest, or just a general thirst for adventure. Some set up camp in very remote locations. Others are idiots and camp right in the path of traveling bokoblins. No kidding, this guy gets his ass kicked on a daily basis. Just move your camp, dude. However, more interestingly, sometimes you will stumble upon an abandoned campsite with its occupant no longer around. Some of these can be found in rather interesting areas. Just the fact that you can reach a desolate and remote location and find out someone's already been there has a feeling of mystique around it. It makes you curious about who this person is or was. What happened to them, and where are they now? Are they even still alive? In some cases, only the remnants of a campfire remain, yet sometimes we can find other materials as well, and even a tent still completely intact. So let's go over some of the most interesting spots found across Hyrule. The many bridges found around Hyrule don't have anything interesting underneath, not even the Great Bridge of Hylia. The only one that does have something noteworthy is Kakariko Bridge. There's a small abandoned campsite with a cooking pot, a roasted bass, some boxes and food leftovers, and a chest containing ice arrows. Now, it's not so much the campsite itself that's interesting, but rather the location. Now, I don't know if this is what they were going for, but I'd like to think that this is a reference to the man under the bridge in A Link to the Past. If you visit him by swimming under the bridge, he will grant you one of 4 empty bottles you can obtain in the game. So most veterans are familiar with this guy. The fact that none of the other bridges have anything of interest underneath them and this campsite is just randomly here feels like a nod to this particular location. Whoever was camping here previously, they are no longer around to hand out bottles to strangers. If you've seen my video about the Lome Labyrinth, you may remember me mentioning that there's a campsite in the eastern section of the maze near the outer wall. This location has intrigued me since who other than Link would be daring enough to venture into such a large, complex and dangerous structure all by themselves? Well, I think I found the answer to that question. To the southeast, not too far from the labyrinth, at the Snowfield stable, we find an old man by the name of Monkton. He shares a childhood story of 2 of his friends, Harry and Mary, who both disappeared and were never heard from again. Mary allegedly slipped off a cliff while they were looking for the entrance to the Forgotten Temple, and in all probability didn't survive the long fall down into Tanager Canyon. The tale of Harry is where it gets interesting. In his younger years, Monkton and Harry went out to play in the maze, ignoring the warning of the adults who said not to go near it as it was too dangerous. One day, Monkton urged Harry to travel deeper into the maze as a test of courage, after which he was never seen or heard from again. So could this campsite belong to Harry, who after being lost inside the confusing and complex corridors of this massive structure, had to rest and regain his strength? Ah, but see, there's one piece of information I've left out of the story. At the end of the story about Mary's unfortunate fate, Monkton reveals the real truth, and states that although both were never seen or heard from again, 2 of their descendants are in the stall right outside. That's right, Harry and Mary weren't actually people. And Monkton reveals that his only friends growing up in this remote location were horses. So with this information, we can make a strong assumption that whoever was camping inside the maze was in all probability making a desperate attempt to look for Harry. This could have been Monkton himself, although he does mention that he was just a kid when the incident occurred. So either he was one badass kid, or it was one of the stable owners, most likely his father, who went out to look for their precious horse. While inside the maze, he may have gotten lost himself and was forced to halt his search and spend the night within the walls of the freezing North Lome Labyrinth. Harry was never seen again and probably either died from hypothermia, starvation, or fell prey to the red Lizalfos who made their home inside these walls. One interesting detail that may or may not have a connection to this tale: at night, around the outer walls of the maze, there will always be a Stelgoblin riding an undead Stel horse. Are these the resurrected remains of Harry? I found another abandoned campsite very similar to the one inside the North Lome Labyrinth, with the same makeshift flag, campfire, and this decayed piece of cloth. In my video about the labyrinths, I referred to this as the possible remains of a tent, but on closer inspection, this doesn't seem to be the case. It's basically a mattress made from pieces of cloth and some straw. Other survivalists out there are using the same method. I'm not 100% sure what the flag is for, but my best guess would be that it serves as either a beacon or functions as a weather vane to detect bad weather. Some of the other Hylian travelers and even some stables also have one of these flags set up, which leads me to believe that this person was most likely a Hylian. Unlike some of the other abandoned campsites where the tent is still present, this person may have survived this temporary holdup and packed up their tent and moved on. Whoever this person is or was, they definitely have a massive set of balls on them, as the location of this campsite isn't exactly conventional. It's next to Hyrule Castle, right smack in the middle of the Castletown ruins, the Castletown Watchtower to be exact. I mean, this place is crawling with guardian stalkers and there's malice everywhere. This campsite was undoubtedly set up after the Great Calamity, since it wouldn't make sense to build a camp inside of a watchtower which is still intact. So who is this mystery camper? Well, the answer can be found south of Hyrule Castle at the Wetland Stable. I think this daredevil is none other than this woman named Parsi. she's actually tied to a side quest called the Royal Guard's Gear, where you have to show her a piece of equipment from the Royal Guard series. Either a bow, a shield, sword, claymore, or halberd, anything will do. Parsi admits that she herself used to sneak into Hyrule Castle to look for this equipment, but never managed to find any. She also states that Hyrule Castle used to be a lot less dangerous than it is now. As Zelda Seal and Calamity Ganon slowly weakened, the castle became more and more of a risk to visit. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much confirmed that people used to go into the ruins of Hyrule Castle to investigate more back in the day. As Rumor Mill Volume 7 tells the story of King Rome's secret room and Zelda's laboratory, also known as Princess Zelda's study, something no one but the royal family insiders could have known about. Nonetheless, getting into Hyrule Castle all by yourself to look for some Royal Guard's gear, spending the night inside the ruins of Castletown? This woman has my respect, a true display of bravery. Hearing a story about something is one thing, but actually finding proof like this makes the world all the more believable, and it goes to show how much little details the Zelda team have hidden around Hyrule. There are many more examples of abandoned camping spots with little stories attached to them. Like hearing someone in Lurelin say that monsters have been taking up the best fishing spots, only to find an empty campsite on the shoreline on the other side of the mountains, with bokoblins scouring through the remains. Discovering a tent with a set of snowballs near a secret stone door into the mountains, indicating that someone else already tried to solve this mystery but was interrupted and had to leave their venture behind. Hearing the stories of a lone adventurer who tried to reach the northern edge of Hebra but was forced to turn back because of bad weather and strong winds, all because he wanted to know what was there. Or how about the mystery visitor on the equally mysterious, hard-to-reach Mekar Island, who left behind nothing but a campfire under a dead tree? Link isn't the only one out there looking for answers. A big shout out goes to Tim Damon, an amazing musician and fellow Dutchie who provided the Clocktown theme you heard at the beginning of the video. There's much more where that came from, so please go over to his channel and show this man some love. The link is in the description. And of course, a massive thanks to each and every one of you for 10,000 subscribers. That is bananas. Oh, hold on. Bananas. If anyone would have told me 1 month ago I would reach this number by June, I would have called them crazy. This milestone came a bit too fast to include something special in this video, but I can still see if I can do something special for next week. If you have any suggestions about what you want to see that can steer my decision, feel free to share them down in the comments. And that is all for now. Next week we're gonna go dungeon crawling again, so I hope you will join me on this adventure. Have a great rest of your weekend. This is Don signing off, and have a good one.